Good evening and welcome to the regular third Wednesday Vesper service of the UU Multiracial Unity Action Council. We embrace all who come with a spirit of worship and invite you to remain after the service for conversation. I'm Jack Reich. We begin with the lighting of our chalice, which Richard will do. Let this light symbolize for us the brightness of the truths that guide us. And now Richard has some announcements.
Our next service on November 19th is our speaker will be the Reverend Marie Manning. She goes by Twinkle Manning of Maine. And the title of her sermon will be Works in Progress. And she's thinking of human beings as works in progress. If you got a Zoom link for this service, you'll automatically get one for that service. But if you were forwarded the link by someone else, to get one of your own to get on the list, send a link to this email address. Our past services are all on YouTube. The easiest way to find them is to go to our website, UUMUAC.org, and scroll down to the link for Third Wednesday services. While I'm at it, I want to point out that our organization has recently published 2 books. One fighting what we have called neo-racism and Unitarian Universalism, by which we mean an approach to fighting racism that we feel is actually counterproductive and will in fact make racism worse. This first book is a collection of articles selected from the first 7 years of our journal, The Arrow. And we've recently published another book by our founder, the Reverend Dr. Finley Campbell, about this concept of neo-racism. And these are both available on Amazon.
Our opening hymn is In the Branches of the Forest, number 173 in our hymnal. 173. Feel free to sing along, but please stay muted.
Branches of the forest, in the petals of the marigolds, on the shoulder of the mountain, in the vastness of the sea, you will find a brooding sadness over all the ancient watershed. You will see it written plainly on the wind and in the sand. There's a blight upon the mountain, there's a sickness in the evening sky, as we ask the age-old question, can we purge us of this sin? Can we save the little nestling from the venom of the cankerworm? Can we clear the look of anguish from the soft eyes of the doe? In the thunder, new commandments sound a warning through the wilderness, and the forest be untainted, let the streams be undefiled. Let the waters of the river, as they flow down to the ocean, be as sweet as in the old days when the mountains stood alone.
And now Richard will share our mission and vision.
Stop sharing, Jack. There we go.
Sorry.
Just a second. We have just a vision nowadays. We envision our congregations, associations, and communities as not being color blind, but color appreciative, as judging and treating people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, their cultural heritage, or other identifier, other identity, and as treasuring diversity in the context of Martin Luther King Jr.'s beloved community. We call this vision multiracial unity. This is our goal. This is the prize on which we try to keep our eyes. This is the mountaintop, the unity of the light and dark-skinned people of the world.
Thank you. Here is a brief reading, after which we will have 1 minute of silent meditation. This is from a New York Times op-ed by Harvard professor Stephen Greenblatt. It's just a brief quotation from his piece. The whole American educational enterprise is in serious trouble. The Trump administration began its assault by using the pro-Palestinian demonstrations on many campuses to charge elite universities with anti-Semitism. The rationale has largely shifted to complaints about affirmative action, diversity initiatives, liberal bias, and the like. Scientific research has been curtailed, postdoctoral fellowships have been abruptly canceled, laboratories have been shuttered, and visas denied. The damage to scientific enterprise extends beyond our borders, whether it's from the cancellation of nearly $500 million in funding for mRNA research under the Health Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., or the purging of data on which climate researchers around the world depend. We will never know what diseases might have been cured or what advances in technology might have been invented had the lights not gone out in the labs. And now a hymn, O Earth, You Are Surpassing Fair. It's number 174 in the hymnal. Our speaker this evening is former NIU Physics Department Chair Dr. Suzanne Willis, who has been interested in science all her life. She has a bachelor's degree in physics from Mount Holyoke College and master's and doctoral degrees in physics from Yale University. She joined the NIU faculty here, the Northern Illinois University faculty in DeKalb in 1988, and remained there until her retirement in 2012, also serving for a time as president of the Faculty Senate and executive secretary of the University Council. Her main research focus was experimental high-energy physics. More recently, she has expanded her interests to physics education and public science literacy. She lives here in DeKalb with her adult son, Leo. Her title this evening is Science in the Age of Trump. She writes, "Many of the second Trump administration's actions have been very harmful to science. I will explain the ramifications of many of these actions and will discuss their effects on the future of scientific research." Suzanne.
Thank you, Jack. Well, science is not doing well in the age of Trump. Now, almost all of the following information that I'll be sharing is pre-shutdown. As you can imagine, the shutdown is making things much worse. More layoffs, statements that unpaid employees may not receive back pay, more budget cuts, and refusals to spend money already allocated. We are losing our best and brightest. 75% of scientists interviewed are considering leaving, especially those early in their careers. Applications for jobs abroad are up 32% for January and March compared to the same time frame last year. France, Germany, Ireland, Denmark, and Australia are all offering incentives for US researchers to move there. Chinese students after graduating are returning to China rather than staying in the US. I will now cover the situations of two main categories of scientific establishments: research universities and government laboratories. First, universities. Since the late 19th century, there's been an understanding between universities and the government. Taxpayers would fund research and student aid. In return, universities would deliver scientific breakthroughs and educate citizens who could defend the nation. This understanding has been blown to pieces. Universities have been under enormous pressure to implement Trump demands, remove all references to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, expel students expressing support for Palestine in order to retain government funding. Unfortunately, even cooperating universities, Columbia in particular, have found that giving into these demands has led not to restoration of funding, but to more demands. Just a small aside, I suspect that the general public, when they think about doing research, think of looking up things on the internet. The research we're talking about here is not that. It is the creation of new knowledge. PhD students must do original research and write it up in a dissertation in order to get their degree. When you hear people say, do your own research, or I did my own research, they're almost always talking about looking things up and not creating new knowledge. Now, federal grants to university researchers include funds to purchase equipment, hire graduate students and postdocs, summer salaries for faculty, generally 2 months of the regular salary, and travel necessary to perform the funded research. It also includes overhead, money that goes directly to the university to provide support for the research, maintenance and repair of equipment, power, air conditioning. Some of the equipment requires some pretty sophisticated air conditioning, administrative and support staff, and so forth. Typical overhead rates are around 50%. Trump wants to cut this to 15%, which would make many grants unaffordable. Now, what do administration spokespeople say? Well, if the endangered research is truly vital, universities can figure out other ways to fund it, such as donor dollars. The trouble with this is that not enough donors want to fund basic research. Also, private equity will never invest in it, as there are no short-term profits, and maybe not even long-term ones. Furthermore, the cuts are hitting public land-grant universities as well, who are losing funding for research important to local farmers and businesses and who do not have large endowments. Last week, letters were sent to the University of Arizona, Brown, Dartmouth, MIT, USC, the University of Texas, Vanderbilt, and the University of Virginia, urging campus leaders to pledge support for President Trump's political agenda to help ensure access to federal research funds. So far, MIT has publicly declined, and the University of Texas has enthusiastically supported this idea. I must say that my jaw dropped when I read this. Such a blatant power grab. I mean, it's unprecedented. Now, why all this hatred for universities? From a spokesperson, first, many of these institutions are too rich to deserve endless public largesse. We have a $36+ trillion national debt. Now, whose fault is that? And American taxpayers are paying billions to elite universities with extremely generous endowments, she said. But remember, universities with much smaller endowments are also being targeted. Second, universities are failing, again, this is the government spokesperson, are failing in their basic mission. Instead of producing students or citizens who will propel our country into the next generation of greatness, they are, in her view, creating indebted students with useless majors who hate our country and like to go to riots. This has not been my observation. However, third, the so-called woke aspects of campus culture, DEI, transgender athletes, unchecked anti-Semitism, violate federal laws. Now, of these three things that she mentioned, I think that the second is by far the most fundamental, that somehow the universities are not turning out students who are improving the country through their education. Now, in my opinion, they most certainly are. And I didn't think that was a matter of opinion, but what are you going to say? Anyway, second, government science. Now, just general comments about government science. Leaders of government agencies are being chosen because of fealty to Trump, not expertise. And few of them have significant expertise, or even any, really. This lack of understanding of an agency's mission has led and will continue to lead to confusion and disarray, which may very well be the point. Also, science is stronger with a diverse workforce, with people being chosen for their ability. Not hiring a white man is not proof that standards have been compromised. I fought this 50 years ago. 55 years ago, I can't believe I still have to fight it again. Anyway, studies of Black and Indigenous and people of color and women are not discriminating against men. Indeed, health studies, for the most part, historically have been done on college-age men, which has produced results which are useful for college-age men, but not necessarily for other groups, particularly women. The symptoms of heart disease or heart attacks in women, for example, are very different from the typical symptoms in men. And we wouldn't know that unless somebody had actually studied symptoms of heart attacks in women. Like I said, this is not discrimination against men. This is common sense, if you ask me. So now, particular government institutions. First, NASA. NASA is underfunded. The Mars return mission, which more in a minute, has been canceled. Many other projects have been either canceled or postponed. 4,000 of the 17,000 NASA employees are to leave by January 1st. NASA's Office of STEM Engagement is to be closed. STEM, if you're not familiar, is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This is at the core, basically, of what science is. And the whole idea of STEM engagement is to introduce ideas of science and technology and engineering and mathematics to the general public, which, as Jack mentioned, I've become very interested in, which I cannot see as being in any possible way a bad thing. But what do I know? Anyway, so of the 124 NASA missions currently either operating or in development, 41 are to be canceled. Remember those possible signs of life on Mars? This is a story that came out fairly recently where the Perseverance rover found some rocks with some particular chemicals on them, which are indicative of the prior existence of life, particularly bacterial life. It is hard to explain how those particular compounds could have gotten there without the presence of life. Now, the Mars return mission, which, as I said, has now been canceled, was planned to go to Mars, pick those samples up, and bring them back to Earth, bring them back to NASA on Earth, so they could be studied in the laboratory directly. But that's not going to happen. Indeed, even the Perseverance rover that found them may be shut off. I don't know if they're actually going to shut off the rover, but they will be shutting off, they won't be listening to it anymore. Now, how the administration has set a couple of goals for NASA, and now how this is going to help us beat China to the moon, which is one of their supposed goals, and establish a base on Mars, another one. I have no idea. They're getting rid of everybody who knows how to do that. Health and Human Services. Robert Kennedy Jr. is the head of Health and Human Services. He is rabidly anti-vaccine and holds many other opinions that are not supported by science, which I will mention in a bit. Support for vaccines, now, by which I mean financial support from that department, is dropping, and support for medically, scientifically supported vaccines, treatments, and medications is being changed to unproven supplements and other treatments. Kennedy, by the way, is very big on supplements. He's boasted that he takes this enormous mound of supplements and vitamins every day. And he has strong ties to the supplement industry. Now, false statements, mostly made by Kennedy, are being promoted. The MMR vaccine, circumcision, this is a new one, and Tylenol cause autism, which they don't. We don't know exactly what does cause autism, but we know pretty well what doesn't, and those are some of the things that don't. In fact, all this focus on trying to prove that vaccines and whatnot cause autism, which, as I say, has been roundly disproved, is keeping us from finding what actually does cause autism. However, fevers during pregnancy are not dangerous. He has said that pregnant women ought to run from Tylenol like the plague, like it was the plague. Now, Tylenol is not all that great as a pain reliever anyway, but what it is good at is reducing fever. And fevers, even mild ones, in pregnant women can be dangerous. So telling pregnant women that they ought to just put up with them is really not a good idea if you want to have healthy babies. He says that seed oils are bad. Where he gets that from, I have no idea. And saturated fats are good, which we have an awful lot of data that says they aren't. Saturated fats are things like, well, are animal fats, beef tallow and pork fat and things like that. Raw milk is good for you, except it really isn't. It can carry all kinds of diseases. It tends not to be tested for anything. Supplements are better for you than medicine. Also note that supplements are subject to no oversight. They may not contain what is indicated on the label. Consumer Reports has done studies of this in the past and have found that indeed most of them either do not contain what's on the label or don't contain it in the stated quantities, and may be contaminated with heavy medicals and actual pharmaceuticals. Some erectile dysfunction over-the-counter supplements have been found to contain actual Viagra, which, so, I mean, yeah, they work, but wouldn't you want to know if that was what you're actually taking? So having an autistic child is the worst thing that could possibly happen to a family. Now, if you talk to any any parents of autistic children, very few of them think that their autistic child is an unmitigated disaster. They love their children. Many of them are very high functioning and contribute in ways to society, just like the rest of us do. It's not a death sentence by any means. They've claimed that pediatricians make 50% of their income from vaccines, and that's why they push them so much. This is blatantly false. If anything, pediatricians lose money on vaccines. They have to buy them, and pay for them before they can use them, obviously. Then they have to store them, which costs money, and then they can't charge for them until they administer them. And so some of them are going to expire. It's a loss. They do not make money on vaccines. In fact, pediatricians indeed do not make money on a lot of things. It's one of the least well-paid medical specialties. And the people who do it because they love children and not because they want to make a lot of money pushing vaccines. Anyway, so now the environment, which a couple of our hymns have taken us to task over. The environment is also not doing well. The Environmental Protection Agency is no longer tasked with protecting the environment. Now they're supposed to look into opening up public lands to mining and logging and just anything else that you can think of that would lead to profits. Climatological science is being disparaged. More false statements, now not about health, but about the environment, are being promoted. Global warming is a hoax, except it really isn't. Indeed, in the news just recently has been that coral reefs appear to have passed a tipping point. They're being demolished by what's called bleaching, where coral is a living thing. It's little animals living in bone-like structures that they've constructed. Bleaching is what happens when all those little animals die, and all you're left is the structure, the bones, if you will, which are dead. So that is happening to many, if not most, of the coral reefs around the world. There is such a thing as clean coal, which technically there is, but it's clean in the sense that it is low in sulfur and doesn't contribute very much to acid rain. It is not clean in any other sense. It emits, it's the worst emitter of carbon dioxide of all the fossil fuels. It obviously results in a lot of smog. It is dirty in the sense of emitting a lot of dirt by the way of smoke and fumes and whatnot. There have been statements that natural gas is a green fuel. This I do not understand at all. It is a fossil fuel, just like coal. It emits less carbon dioxide when burned than coal does, but it still emits carbon dioxide. It's a fossil fuel. It occurs in the ground along, near coal generally. And how you can call it green, I have no idea. But anyway, renewable energy is useless and too expensive, which, well, I don't know, what can I say about that? China is making major investments in coal plants. This is actually true, but they are investing much more heavily in renewables, especially solar. We are backing out of international climate agreements right and left. These agreements can probably not survive without our support. We are, we're the bull in the China closet or whatever it is, China cabinet. Without us, climate agreements just can't work. There's not, the rest of the world isn't enough. They need us. And we're ceding renewable technologies to the Chinese. Want to buy a solar panel? That shit's made in China. They're making a lot of technological advances. They have enormous solar farms. They have one that I've seen pictures of that's something like 5 times the size of Manhattan, on top of a desert. So it's not interfering with, not particularly interfering with anything. But yeah, they're building coal plants, yes, but they're not only building coal plants. They're much more focused on renewables. They have a burgeoning population, and they have to supply them with energy. Coal plants are a short-term solution. They're not a long-term solution. Coal is going to run out. I mean, it's already running out. We're using more and more esoteric ways of trying to get it out of the ground. And coal and oil and natural gas, we've got the tar sands in Canada, trying to get usable fuel out of the tar sands is a horrendous process. The deep sea drilling, you remember the Deepwater Horizon? It was drilling into the Gulf of Mexico, 5,000 feet deep. So they're under 5,000 feet of water. They're drilling into the ground to find oil. This is not an easy thing, and you wouldn't do it if you had easier ways of getting oil. So anyway, so is there hope? I want to think there is, but the damage that has already occurred will take decades to fix, even if we start now and do no further damage, neither of which is the case. Individual research laboratories that have been funded for years have been forced to shut down, and the students and postdocs and some lead scientists have gone elsewhere. Just turning the funding back on won't bring them back. Institutional memory is important. You can't replace someone with 30 years of experience in a particular area of research with someone new, not even someone with 30 years of related experience. It just isn't the same. And probably if you tried to do that, you'd be starting out with people who are new to the field and just really have to start everything from the ground up, which is expensive and inefficient. And why would you create a situation where that had to be done? Makes no sense to me. So I hope we have the will to resist these cuts and changes as far as possible. Battles are being fought in the courts. We can't count on the Supreme Court to uphold the Constitution anymore. And Trump tends to ignore court rulings he doesn't like anyway. Prior rulings have insulated him from most of the consequences of his actions. And so he really doesn't even have to worry about what he does. So institutions and individuals will have to resist and to refuse to cooperate, as MIT and others have done, and keep filing lawsuits. I have been sending the ACLU a lot of money recently. They have been filing hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits. I close by quoting Galaxy Quest, which is a movie that if you've never seen it, you ought to go watch it right now. Never give up, never surrender. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Little pause here. We don't pass a plate or anything, but we do want to point out that we are a membership organization. Our goal is the unity of the light and dark-skinned people of the world. If you go to our website, UUMUAC.org, you can learn lots about us. You can join us. We ask a $30 contribution for a year's membership. We try not to waste your money. We think we're using it well.
Michael E. Salwasser reflects on the first of our 7 principles. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We promote the first and most honored principle of our association by opening our pulpit to all. We affirm the dignity of every person when we value their thoughtful and heartfelt opinions enough to provide a forum to express them. Our service is ending. As we extinguish the chalice, symbol of our faith, we recall the words of the late Reverend Elizabeth Selly Jones. Now we extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. After our closing hymn, the floor will be open for discussion. And the hymn is Knowledge, They Say, which is number 339 in our hymnal. Okay.
Knowledge, they say, drives wonder from the world. They say it's still, though all the dust's ablaze, with marvels at their feet, while Newton's laws foretell that knowledge one day shall be solved. We seem like children wandering by the shore, gathering pebbles colored by the wave, while the great sea of truth from sky to sky stretches before us, boundless, unexplored.
Well, that's it. Usually in the past we actually vary our procedure. Sometimes we leave the recorder running to capture the conversation. Sometimes we do not. Tonight we'll leave it running. If you don't wish to be recorded, say so before you speak, and Richard will pause the recording. And now the floor is yours.
Can you see Dick Burkhart's hand up, Jack?
Yeah. And,
Dick,
and
go
Marie,
ahead,
Hello.
please.
and Marie Cobbs is up also.
Yeah, I've been wondering, Suzanne mentioned resisting through lawsuits. That's one way, but one of the things that occurred to me is all these, they're pulling funding to shut down all these projects. Are there systematic efforts to, when funding is withdrawn, to like sort of archive these projects in a way that where they could be easily restarted when there's new funding, or are there other ways to avoid just total permanent loss of these things?
People are trying to do that. Things that are stored on government servers, like you get a grant from NSF, say, your results are all uploaded to the NSF, and all that stuff is available there, except now it isn't. It's all being purged. So people have been scrambling to download those things as fast as they can. They're able to keep up sometimes, and sometimes they just can't. But yes, there's an effort to preserve as much of that as possible. But there again, just having a record of the knowledge isn't going to yield an instantaneous restarting from where you were. I mean, you can, if you're coming into that, say, okay, I want to restart this. What were they doing? You can read it, but it's not, you still don't have the expertise. It helps, but you need more than that.
Marie.
I was at my occupational therapist day, and she was just saying that she just can't believe what is happening. Is happening, and I think a lot of people feel they're just overwhelmed at especially what's going on in general, and particularly what's going on in Chicago. But my concern is that with this administration and the damage that it's doing, if this administration is continuing in office for the next 3 years, will we be able to recover? That's one thing that I have been thinking about. And another thing I've been thinking about is that I watch Star Talk, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and one of the things, and because of him, I watch YouTube, and one of the things I've been watching quite a bit is these interstellar visitors. And now that NASA is questioning about the funding, and as Neil deGrasse Tyson said, we have to have more evidence. But if NASA is not functioning at its capacity, how will we get the evidence of what these things really are? Because it seems to me that some people are really questioning what they are. So I don't know if anyone else been watching this extensively. I am, but I've been a Stargazer for a long time. Thank you.
Yeah, I've had a long-standing interest in astronomy myself. In fact, my first career ambition was to be an astronaut. This was am I dating myself? This is in 1957, when I was 6, and Sputnik had just been launched, and my dad showed it to me crossing in the sky, and I was so blown away. It was it's the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. But anyway, yes, these interstellar visitors of which you speak are they're not necessarily like aliens. In fact, they're most probably not, but they are rocks and comet remnants and things like that are coming into our solar system from outside it. Now, could there be some kind of alien artifact? I suspect it's unlikely, but as you say, we won't know unless we look, and if we're not looking, we won't know. So, I did want to make one comment about the last hymn, where it says, the first line where it says, "Knowledge, they say, drives wonder from the world," and that reminds me of a friend of mine. I think I was in high school, where she kind of said, "Gee, I wonder what makes the wind." And so I started to talk about temperature differentials and air masses moving and whatnot. And she interrupted me and said, "I didn't want to know. I just wanted to wonder." I did not understand that at all.
Yeah, I think I'm next. So, just wanted to comment that that among the many your review of all the destructive things that the Trump administration is doing, I'm glad you threw in a few things that at least I found were humorous. Obviously, it's very sad what's happening, and the setbacks which will hurt humanity in one way or another. I guess I tend to take the long view that yes, it's bad, but in the course of human history, yes, we've had other bad things, whether it's the Second World War or other things that have been very destructive. In some ways, we have to somehow pull ourselves up to overcoming these things and rebuilding. There was a lot of destruction and a lot of things that humanity has done. And unfortunately, we have a habit of doing that as humans. And, we have to be able to rebuild and redo that. So I'm hoping, we shall overcome in this regard too, even though it's going to hurt people, in the meantime. So anyway, that's kind of my, I guess, framework. So, and then with that, I'm gonna have to leave because my schedule. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm sure we will recover eventually. How long? I hate to speculate. But there was and I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but the woman who talked about what's going on in Chicago with ICE and all these arrests and all that kind of stuff. Have you looked at what's going on in Portland? You know,
Yes.
Trump has declared Portland to be a war zone, and he sent in all these troops. Well, the reaction from Portland is very Portland. They called an emergency nude bike ride. So they had 1,000 nude bicyclists riding by. They're dressing up in costumes, frogs, and funny hats, and just anything you can think of. And they're just making the whole thing just very silly. And I think that is a good response, because you can fight back, and that makes people kind of stiffen and resist. But if you make them look silly, there's just not that much they can do. So maybe you can think about making them look silly.
You want me to leave this on?
Sorry?
That's probably.
I think I'm next.
Nancy is next.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could give us the reasons that the Trump administration is cutting the funding for science research. What are they saying?
I think they're doing it because it's their best way to put leverage on the universities, which they do not like. They want the universities, as stated explicitly in this letter they sent. They want the universities to toe the line with Trump's political opinions or directives or whatever. And they think that cutting off science funding is the best leverage they have. So I don't know that they have anything against actually science in particular, but they have a lot of animosity towards universities. That doesn't explain NASA, of course, and all those cuts, but some of that may be just, I don't think there's necessarily a lot of coordinated intelligence that's going on with all these cuts that are happening. A lot of it started with this Department of Government Efficiency, so-called, which seems to have consisted of Musk plus a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds who just kind of went through willy-nilly throwing stuff out. So there's a lot of things going on there that make no sense.
Alan?
Hi, thanks for the talk. I don't know who was responsible for the opening video, but that was just could hurt, yes, that's as good as Portland almost. So, it's so bad. It's just like, it's hard to resist being despairing. But we've got to fight like hell, and I don't know what to do. But I'm a good follower, so whatever good ideas are put forth, and and somebody steps up and says, "Okay, we're going to do this," I'll be there. But the other thing that looking for hope. I remember reading this book called How the Irish Saved Civilization. And apparently during the Dark Ages, the Irish monks went out and kind of kept literacy a lot and thought process alive in Europe. And so maybe Europe is going to be the savior, and it's kind of like a refugia for our scientists to go there, bring their energy and their ideas and their expertise, and so we'll fall behind. Europe will go ahead, and maybe there's other places that in the world they can go. And I say go and do it, and ultimately, when we are recovering, maybe we will they will rebuild and make it better, because we got energy in this country. It's been, the good energy has been stymied, but it eventually we'll get back, and then we can rebuild. But in the meantime, let the scientists go and do what they do, and do it with people that actually appreciate them. I don't know, what else can I say? But like I say, if you know what needs to be done, let me know, and I will, write letters, or, lay myself on the sidewalk, or whatever is required.
Patricia?
Well, Ellen just made the point that I was going to make, and that is that, well, it's sad that our country, as a bastion of knowledge gathering and scientific research and of leadership in the universities and so on, while that's a sad thing, it's probably true that all of that skill is not being lost. Yes, Europe and Canada and Australia, they will be the beneficiaries of the students that we have trained. And I guess I want to say a rueful statement and a positive statement as well. One is my daughter lives in Portland, Oregon, and I have been delighted by a daily update of the charming and creative protests that are going on there. The rueful thing I want to say is that if there's anything worse than the attack on the natural sciences, it's the attack on my own social science. I'm a sociologist, and we are the enemy aliens who believe that studying society objectively and that diversity is an okay something, we are totally under attack. So I don't want to be a whiner, but if it seems to me that the social sciences are just as much being attacked and threatened as the physical sciences.
Yeah, I would say maybe even more so. They're sort of less splashy, but yeah, I mean that's certainly happening. I did not address that because it's not really my area. But yeah, well, that, and then all the whitewashing of history that's going on. I must say, I was a little tempted, but apparently they have these signs up at national parks now, where it says, report anything that you find is sort of anti-American, and report it here. And I've thought about, maybe I should take a picture of that sign and report it, because it's certainly anti-American. Anyway.
Marie, let me ask Suzanne a question. Suzanne,
Okay.
you used to commute regularly to your office at Fermilab and occasionally fly over to Geneva to your office at CERN. I'm wondering how the cutbacks the Trump administration has now imposed are affecting physics, the practice of physics.
I don't have any direct knowledge right now, because I've been away from the field for some time. But I can't imagine that it's any different from anything else. Physics and high energy physics in particular, although it's not the only one, tends to be very expensive, with financial returns that are very, very, very long term. As I say, if they even exist. I mean, my dissertation was about neutrinos, which are in the same family of particles as electrons, except they have almost no mass and don't interact with anything hardly at all. So now, what good does knowing more about the properties of neutrinos do financially? I mean, it really doesn't. But it's knowledge. We can use that to build more knowledge. And the thing we used to tout mainly in terms of what all this was good for was not the research itself, but the tools we developed in order to facilitate that research. There was well, these collaborations tend to be extremely large with hundreds of universities and thousands of scientists, and they were having trouble like communicating in general with each other. So in the mid-90s, a scientist at CERN developed a way for these large collaborations to share information, data much more easily. The thing he created eventually became the World Wide Web. That started as a tool for high energy physicists. So that's just an example.
Thank
I,
you.
I just
Marie?
I just want people to know that Chicago is fighting back. There's a ICE Center in Broadview, which is, a western suburb, which is considered Chicagoland. And a number of clergy and other people have been demonstrating at the center. In fact, some of our members have also demonstrated at the center. And in a number of the neighborhoods where ICE has been picking up people, the neighborhood is really coming out. They're coming out. There have been thousands of people demonstrating on, in front of Trump Tower. So it's not like Chicago is fighting back. I'm really proud of what Chicago is really doing. And I'm just looking forward to what the big march, No King March on Saturday. And I hope millions of people are out there. But one of the things, when you ask what could be done, I think that the only thing that's going to stop this is a national strike, the way they do it in Europe. I mean, they get, every city, every state comes out. I mean, I think that's the thing that will stop this, because I was listening to Don Lemon and his podcast, and he was saying, well, he didn't show the press conference that the Trump administration had, but all those pseudo leaders were talking about how good things are going. But he's just under the impression that they did it because they're afraid. They're afraid because people are coming out. And I think that the No Kings March, and that's going to be all over the country, I think that would put more fear on them. And I think that's what's necessary. But I think that it has to be a continual thing. We can't do it one day. We have to stay out there until we stop this madness. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I want to express my appreciation for the mayor of Chicago and especially for our Governor Pritzker, who is standing up in a way that very few other governors have been to all this nonsense. I mean, he doesn't mince words. He calls it right out for what it is. He's fighting in the courts. He's fighting every way he can. And I'm so glad I live in Illinois. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
I guess it's my turn. You said that basically that Trump was using this as leverage on universities to get his political ideas, for universities to agree on eliminating some of these things like DEI and putting pressure on about the Palestinian issues and the woke stuff that's happening on the universities. So if the universities would agree to that, to really, have half the professors be on the conservative end instead of, 90% are on the liberal end. If the universities would agree to that, would they get the funding back for science?
Well, as I mentioned, Columbia has been cooperating and they have not got their funding back, but they have gotten more demands. And also in terms of liberal professors, my own field, experimental high energy physics, is the people in it are predominantly liberal. But it's not because we choose for that. We never ask about politics. We ask about, we ask about their abilities and experience and all that kind of stuff. It just turns out that most of them are liberal. So it's a bit of hubris, but I tend to think that that very intelligent people are probably more likely to be liberal than not. That may just be,
Well,
what can I say?
well, yeah, I
I
really
like to think
disagree
that.
with you on that. It's just sorry. I don't think intelligence has right and left to it, but anyways, the Coddling of the American Mind, that book really had a big effect on me. And basically, he's saying that that's partly what happened at the universities is that they became very left-oriented, and they basically got rid of conservatives weren't hired. And to me, that's a big imbalance that's happened at the universities. I notice it in my own town, just here in Corvallis, that just the course offerings, I mean, it's real clear. There's a huge bias. So I understand that position. I don't understand getting rid of science research. So that's the part I'm confused about. It's like, is that really all he's trying to do is saying, look, let's get some balance at the universities and I'll give you your funding back. But you're saying, well, Columbia has kind of gone along with that and they aren't getting their funding back. Because science is a whole different thing,
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's why this is real confusing.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you look at science and engineering, their course offerings do not have any. I mean, they've got nothing to do with politics. They're science and engineering, and as I say, at least in my field, the faculty and participants tend liberal, but that's not because of any specific choices we made. We hire people based on their expertise and knowledge, not on, we don't even ask about their politics. I mean, it would be utterly inappropriate. So the sciences are just not part of that.
Now I get to call on myself. Nancy, it's good to have you aboard as our token conservative. But I want to suggest to you that one of the fundamental skills or postures in what's known as discernment is to take a step or two back and see what is actually happening. Not what you'd like to be happening, not what you think is happening, but what is actually happening. And what is actually happening here is that we have a man who is not sane, no matter how much you admire him, and who has been steadily demolishing American institutions because of his perception that he's been wronged by them over the years. And he's been doing this steadily since he came down that escalator in 2015, without let up, without change. I once co-taught a course in our local branch of oh my goodness, I'm losing my mind. Where did I put it? What is that called? That program for senior citizens for studying things. And
Wow.
it was I co-taught it with a biology professor at Northern, who's a fellow Unitarian. I invited her to join me because of her expertise. And I said, as we were discussing the curriculum, I said, I want to talk about the discipline that's known as gee, this is new for me, people. I'm sorry, I have to apologize. I'm not used to losing my train of thought in the middle of a sentence. It must be that I'm 79 years old. I'm a few months younger than Trump. Well, I'm sorry I can't retrieve it. But at any rate, the point I wanted to make is that all of our institutions are interconnected and interwoven. And if you begin to harm one of them, you wind up harming all of them. and many in ways, it's systems theory is what I was thinking of. I wanted to talk about systems theory, and the professor said, systems theory, no, we're not going to get into that. Well, this is the attitude that far too many Americans, particularly people in a place like Congress, have. That systems theory is some kind of abstract, erudite body of knowledge that we don't need to concern ourselves with. It's the fundamental fact of our lives, systems. And one of the things that's happened, Nancy, is that because of Trump's attacks on the and not just Trump, but of course all the people around him, like Stephen Miller and Stephen Chung and so on. One of the results of that is that people from both the U.S. and other countries are revising their aspirations as to where they want to spend their careers. Who wants to risk having a career in an institution where your funding could be cut out from under you for no reason at all, anytime on the whim of the government authorities? So they're looking to other countries and going to other places. And the same thing is happening with trade. He levied these tariffs thinking, oh my God, they're going to make us rich, when in fact a tariff is a tax on the people themselves. And all this money that he claims is flowing into the Treasury is coming from American citizens. And in response, other countries, the rules of the game don't include that other countries have to sit still and let us punch them up and down the body to our heart's content. They're going to respond. And one of the ways that China has responded is that they've stopped buying our soybeans completely, which is destroying soybean farmers in the U.S. And you don't recover from that. You go bankrupt and you lose your farm. There are a lot of things from which we can't... Marie, I want to point out that there are a lot of things from which we can't recover, because one of the greatest dangers of the current situation that we find ourselves in is what I would call false optimism. And that is, we're very good, we're resilient, look at how we fought the Second World War, and we'll come back from this. There may not be any coming back from this. When other countries stop buying your agricultural produce, you don't come back from that. When the scholars and researchers leave your universities and go to other places, you don't come back from that. And our entire organizational structure, our infrastructure, our knowledge base, our institutions, these could all be falling apart in the next 3 years in ways that would be almost impossible to reconstruct. Who's next?
Well, I want to say that I value Nancy's contributions tremendously.
I want to recommend a book. We're reading at First U, we have global studies, and we are reading this book, Democracy in Change. And actually, it's the deep history of the radical right's stealth plan for America. So this is not, what Trump is doing is not a Trumpian thing. In fact, in reading the book, there's a quote by one of the people saying that Calhoun will be celebrating. Calhoun, the 1830 person, would be celebrating as to what's going on today. So what's happening today has been in the works since Calhoun. It laid in abeyance for a while, but with this and the Project 25, with this book and Project 25, I think you'll get a clear understanding of what's happened. It's not, and we won't come back as we were before. If it continues on, our democracy was something totally different. It would be the democracy of the billionaires. So I'm just recommending that people, look at this book. is Democracy Unchained, it's Nancy McLean. It's easy reading too. Thank you.
What is the name of the book again? Would you repeat that?
I put it in the chat. It's
Oh,
in the
thank
chat.
you.
If you wanna
Democracy
take
in
a look.
Chains. Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Marie.
much.
That's very important.
Isn't it getting to be about the time to quit?
Nancy McLean.
I think so. We usually go for half an hour. Is Rachel, did you have something you want to share?
No, I'm really glad to be here. I'm glad to listen to all of this and to learn a lot. I didn't have a particular question in mind, but I am going to stand outside organizing in the Bridgewater area. We have a Bridgewater Communities for Civil Rights, and we'll have a lot of people. So I'm hoping.
Is that Bridgewater in what state?
Massachusetts.
Yes, Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Whoa!
Massachusetts, and also the city of Brockton, which is next to us. I will go to that as well because that's starting a little later. And that's more of a racially mixed community. So that will be cool.
It
And
is,
we're-
it is, I believe, the only majority Black city in New England.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Oh. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say we're having a No Kings rally here in DeKalb also, and I absolutely plan to attend. One other thing that I've done, and this may not be relevant for everybody, but I have a lot of yard signs. And you might say, well, yard signs, but I live across the street from an elementary school. And so there are my yard signs. And so all the kids and all the parents, every time they come and go, they see all my yard signs. So whether that makes any difference or not, I'm not sure. But I'm happy they're there. I also fly a Ukrainian flag and a Palestinian flag. I was afraid I might get some flack for the Palestinian flag, but I don't think anybody recognizes it. The only reaction I got was from a local contractor who left me a card that said, "Free Palestine, 25% off labor." But we do what we can. And we keep thinking of more things.
Well, I think one of the things that's terribly important is that we must get out and work in next year's elections.
Oh, yeah.
So especially with, I'm sorry, Nancy, with Republicans around the country gerrymandering their states in order to cut down the number of Democratic congressional representatives. We have to get out and elect more Democrats and take over the House and the Senate so that we can stop Trump's madness.
Well, and local offices are important too. The state legislatures, in particular, because if we now Illinois, of course, is majority Democrat, sort of in both the House and the Senate. But even so, if other states, if we can work in other states, then if we can get more Democrats in state offices, that may help fight the gerrymandering. At least one could hope.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming out. And remember, next month, remind us, Richard, who our speaker is next month?
Twinkle Manning,
Twinkle Manning.
a minister in Maine, works in progress. And works in progress are us people. People are works in progress.
And she's a bright light and a lot of fun to listen to. So thanks again for coming. Tell your friends. Spread the word. We have a website. UUMUAC.org, I believe, is what it is. And we welcome your participation. And with that, I'll close unless anybody has something else to say. Hearing none, I wave good night. Thank
Have
you.
a good night for
would-
those I won't see.
Would the crew stick around? Richard, Matthew, and Sue. Let's get some details straight. Goodbye, Marie. Thanks. Thanks for coming. Goodbye,
Thanks.
Doug. And
Bye.
Matthew's already gone.
Thanks, Susan, for
oh, Matthew left.
a very enlightening presentation. Thank you.
Now, Richard, I want to ask you a question. I had a call today from Dick Burkhart, which disturbed me a little. He wanted Dan Kenny's address so he could send him his check. Dan Kenny spoke a month ago. No, 2 months ago. So I don't want, we can't have that happening. Suzanne, I passed your address along to Dick, who is our treasurer, and so you should be getting a check in a more timely fashion. But I want to thank you so much for your presentation tonight. It was absolutely breathtaking.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
I should have pointed out, and I didn't, that of course that Sue is a longtime Unitarian.
Although I've drifted away a bit. Do they know that I'm your ex-wife?
Probably not. I didn't. I wasn't in a hurry to tell people.
Yes, and my son is your son?
Yes, yeah. They might think that there was some ulterior motive I had in recruiting you to speak.
Well, I probably knew I was sort of an easy mark, but
Yeah.
sort of.
Well, I compare your performance, for example, tonight, to the shy young woman that I met how many years ago? My God, 37 years ago, who,
It was 1987, as I recall.
yeah, no,
38.
88.
Oh,
We met in April
37.
Of 88? No.
of 88, yeah.
Okay, then that's right. That's right.
We met in April.
All right. Yeah.
And
You
you
got married
were,
awful quick.
Yeah, we did. And you were often shy about speaking in public, about public speaking, and you had to gird yourself to go into the classroom and preach, and now it just flows out of you like water out of a waterfall.
Yeah, well, it took by the time I met you, I was a lot better than I was at the beginning, because
Oh, yeah.
teaching was something that I really wanted to avoid like the plague. But in my field, you can have there are two places you can get jobs: universities and government laboratories. And so I worked at a government laboratory, and then I wound up at a university. So, which meant that I would have to teach. But my class evaluations that first semester, one of them said, Dr. Willis always looks like she's scared to death. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason for that. I'm always scared to death. But yeah, as you see, I've gotten over it, and I've I like teaching, and I'm still shy, but I do enjoy speaking.
Yeah.
Within reason.
I want to go have my supper now.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks to both of you, and shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.